All right, today's second review is going to be of the movie Roofman, starring Channing Tatum, who played Jeffrey Manchester, who was known as the real life criminal, the Roofman, who, after being discharged from the military, kind of has, I guess, a very rough life, like not a lot of money, and so on and so forth. This story took place in 2004. So it is a very sad story, but the one thing that really irked me at the very end is that they changed part of the story to make it seem a little bit more personal in the movie. So I knocked my score down a little bit because of that. I was going to give it a 7, and then I knocked it down to a 6 just because of that. So yeah, 6 out of 10 for this movie. It wasn't like my favorite movie, and it was, I guess, who knows what else they might have changed too, but it was loosely based on real life. So I can understand maybe why they changed some of the names and left some characters out, possibly just because maybe they didn't want to be involved in, maybe they didn't want to have their character in the movie. So I can understand and respect that as well. But also, I do kind of hate when they change the story, uh, like when movies are based on a true story and they add too much into it. I don't really like that either, because then I feel like it kind of uh, leads you down the wrong path. You know what I mean? So we had Channing Tatum as Jeffrey Manchester, Kirsten Dunst as Lee Wayne Scott. Yeah, Wayne Scott. That was it. Lakeith Stanfield as Steve, Ben Mendelsohn as Pastor Ron, Alyssa Marie Pearson as Becky, who was um, Jeffrey's daughter, who was the most, I guess, prominent character as far as his family went. Now, he did have two younger boys, and the daughter was older, so I guess it kind of made sense that she was more the one that he was talking to throughout the movie because she was actually old enough. Then we had Peter Dinklage as Mitch, who was the manager of the Toys R Us that Jeffrey was able to hang out in for 4 months after he escaped prison. So that was kind of a crazy thing. Um, and then we had Emery Cohen as Otis, who was just one of the people who worked in the store, but he was a pretty important character by the end of the movie when he was, calling Jeffrey a bully and all this other stuff, so on and so forth. It was actually kind of funny, that whole scene. Then we had Lily Coleus as Lindsay, and Kennedy Moyer as Dee, who played the two daughters of Lee Wayne Scott. So, yeah, this movie starts out with him and his family. He's having a pretty rough go of it, obviously, after he was discharged from the military, so he starts robbing a whole bunch of fast food joints because he knows there's, you know, money in it there for his family. And he ends up robbing 45 of them, which is enough for him to buy his family a house. And of course, his buddy, who's obviously doing some pretty shady stuff too, uh, Steve, kind of realizes that uh, that Jeffrey is the roof man pretty quickly, and kind of goes, this is ridiculous. Like, what are you doing? You're going to get caught. And eventually, at one of his daughter's birthdays, he does get caught, which is unfortunate because his daughter has to watch him get arrested, which is not anything a kid should see for any of their parents or, family members at all, right? Like, especially at that young, she's not going to understand exactly what's going on or what her dad has done, but she's going to know that it wasn't good, obviously, with the cops showing up at the door during her birthday and him being arrested. So he goes to prison, and of course, he slowly finds a way to escape because he has a pretty crazy brain. Like, he's able to notice things that a lot of other people don't. So he notices when the guards, or when the, what was it, like when the truck comes to pick up certain things in the prison, and he finds a way underneath the truck to be able to escape. And he's out for 4 months. Now, in the beginning, I'm not really sure exactly. Like, he seems to go back and try to meet with his daughter, but of course, it seems like the house is pretty heavily guarded. So he calls Steve, but Steve isn't there. It's just Steve's girlfriend. And she says that he took another mission to Afghanistan. He's going to be gone until December 1st. So, unfortunately, Jeff now has to find some sort of other way to survive for 4 months in this small town, hiding out in this Toys R Us. Now, obviously, with his military background, he's going to have the smarts to be able to hopefully not get caught, right? Now, he does one night when the manager decides to come back in late or stay late, I guess, for whatever reason. And Jeff gets caught, but he is able to still hide himself in the Toys R Us where he's been. And unfortunately, the cops aren't able to find out where he was. Uh, when he does finally get caught, it's because of his own kind of stupidity, I guess. Now, he did kind of make it out in the movie like he didn't really want to leave. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not. It kind of seems like he was sucked back in by Lee, unfortunately. And of course, in the movie, this wasn't necessarily the case. Lee wasn't the one that ended up calling him in, but in the movie, they made it out that way so that it was a little more personal, and it would kind of seem like she had betrayed him in a sense. But he even forgave her after he was in prison, and he kind of just accepted, I guess, that that was where he was supposed to be, even though he tried to escape two more times, I believe they said in 2019, or no, sorry, in 2009, and once in 2017. Now, he is eligible for parole in, I believe, the year 2035 or 2036, but he'll be a pretty old man by that point. And it's kind of crazy that the crimes that he committed, he never really hurt anybody besides that one guy that comes in for the money to Toys R Us around Christmas time. Like, that was the only person that I ever saw him hurt. And even in the real accounts at the end of the movie, they talked about the fact that, he was such a nice man, and that, everybody who he, put into the freezer or the fridge, he always made sure they had a coat on and so on and so forth. He never wanted to hurt anybody, but he did he did bring a weapon with him. So, again, he got, charged with that, and then the whole kidnapping thing on top of it, and he was sentenced to, like, I don't know how many months in prison, and then the second time he was sentenced to like another 300 and something months in prison. So it was just absolutely insane for the little amount of crime that he actually committed, that he was, sentenced to that long of a time in prison, right? It seems kind of like he was, like, I know that he stole a lot of money, obviously, and the toys that he donated to the church were all stolen, and so on and so forth. And everybody was like, oh, well, he's such a nice guy. He's just trying to do the right thing. And I mean, technically, he was. He was trying to live a good life, but unfortunately, I guess due to like his discharge from the military, it kind of seems like he was just like him and his friend were thrown by the wayside, because even his buddy Steve was doing underground passports and birth certificates and so on and so forth. So neither of them were really, living their best life, but they were trying to. They were just going about it the wrong way. And of course, they were influenced by, basically being out on the street. And it was either, kind of do that or be homeless, because I don't even know if they could have found another job with being discharged from the military. I'm not really sure how that works, but it seemed like both of them were kind of, really had been kind of forgotten about after they had served in the military. It was kind of like they served and thank you for your service, and we don't care what happens with your life now. And it just kind of goes to show that a lot of the times, the highest paying government jobs are maybe not maybe not the best, because it seems like once you're done, or once you've been discharged, or so on and so forth, it seems like you're kind of forgotten about, which is sad. And of course, yeah, it was just kind of a sad story for him, because he didn't really know how else to make a living other than that. and maybe he was influenced from a younger age by certain people he was around, and I think that his buddy Steve didn't necessarily help with that either, trying to say that he was doing things, the legal way, which obviously he wasn't, and he didn't want help from him. And I think maybe because nobody really felt like they wanted uh, Jeffrey around, he kind of felt like he was on his own, right? So maybe that was part of it too, as to why he decided to, make money the fast way. Um, and of course, at least he was smart enough not to, rob a bank. And he always came down through the roof. That's why he got the nickname the Roofman. And there were definitely a couple of funny scenes in this movie for sure. The scene where he breaks into the wrong spot and has to use the whole statue to break the window out after he goes and grabs another gun. I'm like, dude, what are you doing here? Like, you shouldn't be. You don't have to use a weapon for what you're doing. Like, I don't really feel like anybody's going to be any less scared of you without the weapon as they are with the weapon. You know what I mean? Um, because you're just kind of coming out of nowhere. And of course, I mean, maybe with the weapon, it's just kind of, even if it wasn't loaded. Now, I'm not sure if it was or not, but of course, the only guy who never listened to him was the guy who came in to collect the money from Toys R Us. He tried to go for his gun, so Jeffrey hit him. And of course, that's when uh, Lee came in and saw his eyes and knew exactly who he was, so she was able to give him up to the cops in the movie. Now, it was one of the other churchgoers that gave him up after they recognized him. And it kind of seems like the cops almost forgot about him, but I think maybe that was part of their tactic, was that they were trying to pretend like they had forgotten, and then they were gonna trying to draw him out slowly. And eventually that did work, but it was kind of sad because he didn't really do anything, you know, completely insane. It was just that, he was obviously doing crime. So, I mean, you got to do the time, right? But also at the same time, it was kind of sad to see his life just spiral downwards. And he was trying to be normal, trying to be helpful. And of course, he connected with Lindsay and Dee pretty quickly. They kind of fell in love with him. And of course, even in the real life, like little clips at the end, Lee had said, she talks to her oldest kids about it now, and they said, yeah, we never had anything wrong with him. We connected with him really well. Like, we had a good time. He seemed really nice. It's just unfortunate that he wasn't who he was saying he was. I believe the fake name he went with was John something. I can't remember exactly, but he tried to say that he was like a undercover working for the government, which was funny because that was the thing he came up with, and he was also served in the military. So it was kind of funny that he almost was saying that he had a government job, but he did have a government job because he worked for the military, right? So it was kind of funny to see all of that anyway. Uh, Anyhow, I think that's all I can say about this movie. Other than the, ink pack blowing up when Peter Dinklage's character takes the money. um, oh my God, what was his name? Mitch. When Mitch takes the money out of the thing and the ink pack explodes in his face. Oh, the whole scene was just goofy up until, of course, it got a little bit serious with Lee walking in and seeing who he was. But she did visit him again, and I guess like in real life too, she visited him, and also the pastor in real life has visited him a few times. So it's kind of funny that all these people still have a connection with him even after all these years. But I guess he kind of was in people's lives and touched them in a certain way. You know what I mean? Um, like he formed a connection with these people, so they felt touched that he was in their lives, is what I'm trying to say here. And yeah, it's just weird the people you form connections with, even if they weren't who they say they were. It still doesn't matter. They were still trying to be the same person, regardless of whether they were lying about their identity or not, I guess. So yeah, kind of a cool concept. Definitely a story that seems kind of off the beaten path to tell in a movie, but I gotta give them props for telling it anyway. But yeah, that's all I can say about this movie. 6 out of 10 if I didn't say that already, and I will see you guys in the next review. Bye bye for now.